The next session, Return to the Workplace, Employer's Perspective, is sponsored by Huntington. Please welcome the President and Chief Executive Officer of Strategic Staffing Solutions, Cindy Pasky, Chairman of the Board of Directors at Huntington National Bank, Gary Torgow, and to moderate the discussion, the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of 1642 Ventures, Dennis Archer, Jr.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Cindy.
I don't know, we didn't get a snazzy video like Eric got with all the music and the video footage. I don't
That
know.
was your responsibility.
Hey, I don't know how I should take that.
I felt like we should tap dance around
Something.
the chairs, yeah.
Hey, look, before we dive into this, let me just say the following. On behalf of the Chamber, myself, my family, my businesses in Detroit, I just want to thank the both of you, because you two are probably, if not the two of the most philanthropically minded Detroit boosters that we have in our community. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Dennis.
I appreciate
that.
You know, now, given the subject at hand, I have to tell you that hopefully coming out of this in the 27 minutes that we have left, I'll get some guidance, because I really have not come to grips yet on, you know, where to land on the whole back to work situation. We have a small marketing agency downtown with half a dozen or so people that come in every day, and we started with one day in, mandatory, we're moving to two. In our distribution business, so we have Teamsters in the warehouse that have to come to work every day to get the stuff out, but then we have the professional folks in the offices. They have different family situations. We say everyone has to come in, some people can't. What do you do with that? And then we all know what's going on with hospitality, so I don't need to go into that. But, you know, before we delve into that, I mean, your perspectives will be very important today. Cindy, you have a corporate headquarters here. You deploy folks around the country and around the world, and you have offices outside of the United States. And Gary, you were steeped in, you know, multifamily at first, then office development. Now you're a banker who has, you know, billions of dollars of loans out to folks with office developments. And so, but first, before we delve into that, let me go back to the philanthropy piece for a second, because I think it's just very important for many of us who are trying to find the balance of being a good entrepreneur, understanding the fiduciary responsibility that we have to our investors, our partners, our stakeholders, our shareholders, if you're public. How do you two balance running your businesses so efficiently and successfully, but being tremendous corporate citizens and philanthropic? And we'll go ladies first.
All right, well, thank you, and thank you for the kind words. Gary and I were talking, not to age us, but you could all figure it out anyway. I mean, we've known each other for over 30 years.
Well, I think Gary should get
Yeah.
some green hair. I think that you guys would, you know.
Well, the Huntington colors are green, so it might work now. But I think that's a really good question. You know, when we started us3, it was two people, right? And a lot of debt and no Gary Torgow, no resources, no bank. But one of our pillars was that we would always set the bar high for what we thought a corporation should do in the community. And we started out the very first day of business saying, we're a business, we have to make money. But at the same time, equally along the same path, we have to find a way to support the community. Mm-hmm. And so when we were very small and underfunded and figuring out that we could probably continue to make money, we did a lot of things like, you know, help with houses in the neighborhood. What was the Clean Detroit? Remember that?
Clean sweep.
Clean sweep.
Right.
And made small contributions. We figured any contribution was a start. Mm-hmm. And you know, I'm chair of the Michigan Humane right now, and I looked up, and the first S3 check in 1990 to Michigan Humane was $20. So it wasn't what last year's check was.
Right.
But it was a check, and we just said they have to go hand in hand. But we also remind our teams, and I'll do this next week when the whole overhead team is here in Detroit, we're a business. We have to be profitable. And the idea of being profitable means it gives us the resources to do what we need to do.
Mm-hmm. Gary?
You know, first, thank you, Dennis and Cindy. Wonderful to be here with you, and thank you to the Chamber. I think we learned very early on that a company is only as healthy as the community it's in. And I have learned over my career that, and maybe this is a heavenly thing, but the more you give back, the more you get. Mm-hmm. The more you do for the community, the more successful your company is going to be. And if you want to measure bottom line, when it's all said and done, you could satisfy your shareholders, you could do good for your colleagues, you can take care of your customers. The more you do for the community, the more they're going to be successful. Mm-hmm. And charity and philanthropy and community are what drive everything that we do. If you want to look at how you keep your priorities in place, look at what's most important to you. And if you look at what's most important to you, it's the health of those around you. And the more you do that, the more you recognize the obligations that you have to the community, the more successful you're going to be, and happier your shareholders will be as well. And your colleagues, the people that work with you. I have found in Huntington and in the banks that I've worked in and in the real estate and in Detroit, that when you look around and you see a healthy community, you see a strong and vibrant city, you know that it's because lots and lots of people gave back. Not one company can do it, not one community. Everybody's got to chip in, and when you do it, we're all going to be stronger.
That's great advice, thank you. Cindy, again, as I mentioned at the outset, you have a corporate presence here, and you deploy folks all over the place. Mm-hmm. How are you personally managing first here corporately back to work? You in the office every day? What's the flexible situation, if it exists? What does it look like?
Well, you know, I will start by, everybody knows that we're still a private company. And so I recognize that gives us perhaps the opportunity to be firmer when we draw a line in the sand. So we mandated vaccines early on. We worked with Henry Ford, and last year, or 2021, we had 9 vaccination clinics in our office.
Did you lose any folks that said, hey, I'm not doing it?
We did. We lost some talent, but I mean, our job is to find talent. So I said to my exec team, I said, well, if we don't have the confidence that we can replace the people we're going to lose, we're in the wrong business. Right. So we did have it. We thought we had an advantage there. So we lost some people, but we didn't waver. We ended up with 100% compliance, and that was leading into then that June of 21, we mandated that our overhead team must be back in all of the offices around the world within compliance of the laws of which we were governed, depending on the country or the city. We lost a few more people, but we also know that our ability to service our customers and to run the way we run, which is really lean and very creative, we were not at our best using technology. Mm-hmm. We are at our best when we're together. Mm-hmm. We actually moved into our fabulous new office in the Fisher Building during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And when we first moved, our space wasn't ready, so there was a whole group of us in a space that was about as big as this. And it was the best possible thing that could have happened, mm-hmm. because we worked through so many challenges and opportunities right there. But we mandated it, and we recognized that we would lose talent, and that shame on us if we couldn't replace the talent. We didn't take it lightly, because we have a high retention rate, but we couldn't serve our customers to the best of our ability if we didn't perform at the best of our ability. And we knew that in order to do that, we needed to be together.
Yeah, that's great. So I want to come back to you about what you're seeing around the country and around the world, but first, Gary, for you, you've built this gorgeous, which I happen to have gotten a tour, beautiful facility downtown as your additional headquarters here in Detroit on Woodward Avenue. You came in on time, you came in at budget, but are there people in the building? And if so, what did you have to do to get folks to come back and feel comfortable to be in the space?
Well, first, we're in a terrific area. We're on the 50-yard line at Detroit. It's exciting to be there and exciting to be in Detroit. And we really worked hard to first, as the pandemic was happening and we knew we were building a building, our concern was not filling the building, it was protecting the health of our colleagues. And we weren't encouraging anybody to come back until they got comfortable. And then over time, as thankfully the pandemic has waned and people are starting to come back, we were about ready to open our building. It opened in September. It's a fabulous facility. It's got a wonderful rooftop. It's got a great coffee shop. It's got great views of everything in Detroit. And we brought our folks down and said, take a look and see if you're interested. We gave some incentives to bring people back, and the building is filling up. And we probably have seats for 700 people in the building. We're probably at 300 or 350 already. And slowly, as people are starting to get more comfortable coming to work, and maybe it's 2 days a week and 3 days a week, and we're encouraging the people are coming in. And the building is spectacular. It's a fun place to work. We've got great neighbors, great restaurants, great sports teams. If you come up to the roof, you can see center field right from the very front of our building. And my office, I can look at just a magnificent Detroit. I was thinking back.
I'm sold. Are you sold?
Yeah, I'm sold.
You're all invited, and you come up to the roof. I was thinking back to 2006 when the Super Bowl came to Detroit. Your dad was the mayor, great mayor. And we had to dress up Detroit. Roger Penske made a great effort to make sure Detroit looked good. And the game was not in Detroit, and we were building. Detroit had not yet really reached its pinnacle. Today, you don't have to dress up Detroit. We could bring a Super Bowl, and people would do everything they can to be in the environment of Detroit. You just look around. Mayor Duggan went up to the roof of our building, and he pointed out all the things that weren't there until he became the mayor of Detroit. So we invite everybody to come. Building is open. You can enjoy it with us. Come up to the roof. We're having events there. I had a call this morning from someone who wants to get married on our roof. I don't know if we'll do that, but I never know. So it's a wonderful place to work, and people are coming back.
So Gary, that's great. You mentioned about 300 or 350 out of 700. And Cindy, we were talking about numbers being one thing, but the experience of being downtown every day, what does that feel like? You know, Eric mentioned some numbers in his presentation, but I'm always skeptical about the numbers because I think some of my restaurant management is here, and we opened for lunch, and you know what I hear from the numbers don't necessarily reflect themselves in our lunchtime revenue. Right. What do you find? I mean, you have empirical data in terms of who's actually working downtown and who's not.
You know, I think it's a valid point. I think that you know, when I see those numbers, and I'm chair of the DDP, and I'll say this, I wonder about them. But numbers in many instances are self-reported, or they're what's planned or what was at a moment. I think when we report on actual numbers of people that are working here, the best way to get that information would be to look at the tax rolls.
Fair enough. You, Cindy, let me stick with you for a second. You see not just Detroit, you see around the country and around the world. Do you see, are we any different in our downtown in terms of the amount of people back to work on the streets every day in the offices? Are we on par with the other cities that you see?
You know, I would say when you go outside of the United States, we are not on par. And you know, whether, you know, people would say, well, maybe we shouldn't compare ourselves to London, but when you go into parts of Europe or you go into parts of Eastern Europe, the majority of workers have been back at all levels for a long time, and safely. I mean, that's I agree with Gary. People have to feel safe, and they have to have the resources. There's a significant high vaccination rate in a lot of those countries. But no, we don't look like London looks. We don't look like Vilnius looks. We don't look like Warsaw looks. And we should, and I believe that we have an opportunity to, but we're not there yet.
What should we be doing differently? How do we get there?
Well, it's, you know, the challenge that we have is it's driven by each individual corporation and how they view what they need to do with their employees, their corporations, and they all have shareholders to serve. and they have multiple locations. That being said, I do think that Eric and the team have done a good job of creating, with individuals like yourself, business owners, we're safe, right? We're always safe, clean, and inviting. So we need to continue to do that, but we need to have people at the C-level that recognize for safe, clean, and inviting to continue and be sustainable, they need to find a way to have their teams here.
Gary, what do you see? You've got obviously significant corporate headquarters here and in Ohio, and obviously commercial and residential office portfolios, all over the country. What are you seeing, Detroit versus some other markets?
So I think we're seeing it about the same across our region. We're in 10 states. I think what is happening is, and I don't know a lot about Europe, but I could tell you what's happening in America. We have a lot of lessons to learn from the pandemic, and shame on us if we don't learn some of those lessons. One of those was that there needs to be a good work-home balance. There needs to be a shift in the way that we do business. There needs to be a difference between the way we used to do it and we do it today. What's happening at Huntington, I think, is a pretty good example. We have 25% of our people. We've got 20,000 colleagues across our region. We've got about 25% of the people that are not coming back to work. They're in jobs that don't need to be in an office. They're back office, they're fraud areas, and they're doing a great job, and they're performing, and they're doing their job as they should. We have about 25% of our folks who are back at work fully. So that's the retail presence, that's leadership around the bank, and they're back at work. The challenge is the 50% who are modified today, and I think what's going to happen there for our company, and I think for the rest of the country, is we're going to see them come back, the other 50%, and it's probably going to be 3 days or 4 days a week. It's not going to be a 5-day work week at this point, but they're going to come back. They recognize that you need the mentorship. They recognize that you need the camaraderie. You need the opportunity to be with each other. You grow in your business and you grow with each other when you're in the same room and you're not on Zoom. We've had a lot of Zoom, and there's going to be continuation of Zoom. But that rest of the 50% is going to come back, and we're encouraging it. And we learned a lot of lessons. It's okay to have a home-work balance. It's okay not to be in the office 5 days a week. We're not a private company like Cindy, but we really believe that talent is going to be driven not by how many days a week they come to the office. Talent's going to be driven by, do you give them a good job? Do they get a good pay? Do they have good benefits? Do you treat them well? Do you have a good company that surrounds them? And if you do, and you encourage them to work with each other, people are going to come back. So I don't know about Warsaw, but I know about Detroit, and I think we're coming back.
How do you speak about work-life balance? We've heard a lot of that coming out of COVID. I think that particularly Detroiters, like, we grind here, we work hard here, and there's certain levels of productivity and hopefully efficiency that comes from that. And so now, when all of a sudden everybody is reflective and they're trying to identify what that work-life balance looks like, which is important, how do you still drive that level of productivity and efficiency out of what likely is going to be less hours of actual work?
Well, I think part of, in our world, part of how we did that was to have everybody work together again. We're more efficient if we're next to each other, right? It's not a phone call, it's not a scheduled Teams, it's pop around the corner, get the answer, and move on. And so we looked at how we do our work, and what we realized is we were much better at it when we could have our teams together. The other thing that we were very direct about is, I agree with Gary, you have to have a culture. I think that over the 32 years, most everyone knows S3's developed a strong, deep culture. You have to have good jobs, you have to have salaries, but you should never let your teams not understand what drives all of that, which is being successful and profitable. So when they recognize that, we call it the S3 lifestyle, requires us to be successful and profitable, in a lot of instances, it happens without us having to worry about it because they see the benefits of that. And then, the other thing I'll add is we service customers, and our customers are either finance, energy, healthcare. And we also recognize that we can't ask our consultants to service a customer where they have to be forward deployed, as we say it, or front line, and call back to the office and we're not there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was another part of the mandate to come back, and there was a core group of us. We were considered A because of the customers we served. We were in the office during the entire pandemic. We were safe. Mm-hmm. We were healthy. We had all of the equipment. We did everything appropriate. We had very few cases. But we couldn't say to the folks that service our healthcare clients, you're now on seven days a week, mm-hmm. extra shifts, and when you call your corporate office for support, we're not there.
Gary?
When you're telling your colleagues you can come to work in a building 3 days a week, you're sending a signal that you trust them. Mm-hmm. You trust them that they're going to do their job. You trust them that you believe in them. You do want them to be in the office. You do want them to meet with folks. You want them to see clients and customers, but you trust them, and they're going to make their own work-home balance. And when you give them the opportunity to be in a good building, when you give them an opportunity to be in a good surrounding, and you tell them it's okay 3-4 days a week, they're smart people, and they'll figure out what the best balance is. The balance to be at home full-time versus the balance to be in the office, those days are over. And now we're really giving an opportunity for our own colleagues, for the people that we work with, to see what's a good balance for them. How do they get their mental health right? How do they get their best mentorship? How do they get their best relationships? So we're encouraging people to come 3 days a week. I'm not sure which 3 days that'll be, but they'll come to work and they'll figure out their own balance, and we're going to encourage that and we're going to accommodate it.
So Gary, you brought up kind of upward mobility within the workplace, and Cindy, you are well known for your corporate culture. I mean, what I struggle with is, one, how do you maintain a culture if everyone is Zooming?
Right.
And I even, when I go out to our office in Belleville, sometimes we'll have a team meeting and people have not yet gotten out of the habit of sitting in their offices on their laptops, and we're all Zooming in the same building, but they're not. I said, no, everybody come to the conference room. If you want to wear a mask, that's fine, but that's it.
Right.
So, one, how do you, without being in the office, drive culture? And then two, Gary, to your point, and both these questions are for both of you, you want to be around your supervisor or your manager so that you can establish those relationships. And if you're not there, then how do they, it's one thing to judge your work product. Did you have a checklist, your revenue, client satisfaction, but that personal interaction often helps drive decisions to promote people. And so if you're not in the office, then that can't happen. And so how do you manage the cultural piece and the upward mobility piece if folks are not in the office?
They're going to be in the office.
There you go.
They're coming back, and they're going to manage that. They're going to realize it. They recognize it. They know, like we all know, if you look at this audience, it's much bigger than it was in the past. Mm-hmm. People know they want
record-breaking audience today. Thank you.
Good for the chamber. And good. And all of you and all of us recognize that to do those things, you need to be together. You need to socialize. You need to be in community. You need to talk to each other. You need to bounce ideas off each other. You need to ask the person sitting next to you, what are your goals and your dreams and your ambitions, and what would you like to do next in the company? You can't do that on Zoom.
Right.
You cannot do that. So people are coming back. We're encouraging it. We're asking people to come back to work, but we're recognizing the balance. And I think that is what's going to turn the tide for the community, and I think that's what's going to happen in America. If you go to the big cities today and you start to see people coming back, we've got offices in big cities, people are starting to come back, and they want to come back. They want to be with each other. They want to get out of the house. They want to figure out how to get back with their colleagues. We have lots of customers. You need to go visit your customer. Mm-hmm. Your customer needs to visit you. Those are the ways that people are going to recognize, just by the way it's naturally done, that people need to be with each other. That's the way the world was set up, for us to be face-to-face with each other, and people are going to do it. So we're pushing it, but at some point we're not going to need to push it. People are going to come back.
Well, and you think of some of the cities I referenced, and a lot of them have commuters, right? Whether it's London, whether it's Vilnius, you go like Dallas. So a lot of the large cities where a lot of people have returned, they were pretty much already on a 4-day work week anyway, right? London was the last. It's always Thursday nights, the big pub night. Everybody gets on the train, and then they come back early on Monday morning. So there's nothing to say that if anything has come out of this, it's giving people an opportunity to say, this is how you define your job's defined for you. Here's the expectations of delivery. Figure out a way to get it done, and this is where you do it. But also, it's like we had a 2.5-year habit for a lot of people, not for us three, but for a lot of our customers, that they have to break that habit now. And you don't break a habit in 3 months, right? But to Gary's point, once they're in the office, they know it's safe, they know it's clean, they're happy to see everybody, they get back in a rhythm, they understand how to get where they're going. Then they remember the benefits that they had lost. Now they have a mentor. Now they have access to the person that is responsible for the review, for their career path. Now they're more efficient, right? But at the end of the day, we're still a business. And if we can't run our business well and to the best of its ability, that's a problem.
Well, I hope that you all found this insightful. I certainly did. I'm going to try to apply some of what you said back in my businesses. Let me end the way that I started by thanking both of you again for your tremendous generosity and support of the city of Detroit. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Thank you.